Hey guys, I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about grief and distractions on the Craving Consciousness podcast and on my YouTube channel, Brandon Lee Johnson. Probably going to be a super duper short episode. There's just a few pointers that I wanted to talk about and share my experience. Just today, I had one of my friends and followers reach out because she had a loss right around the same time I had a loss. And she was asking me, are you still grieving? Like she's having a really hard time. And this is after a little bit after a year of both of the people's deaths. Um, and so I shared with her my like vulnerable moment is that there's just different types of grief. And those of you guys listening, I'm sure are aware of all the different types of grief and the peeling yourself off the floor, the crying, the denial, the being pissed off at them, all the things. But one of the things I wanted to share with you guys today is about the distractions. So at first, when it first happens, and then you come to this conclusion that yes, they actually did die, you, at least in my experience, it's like I wanted to move to another country. I wanted to completely end the life that I knew it as it was. I wanted to just completely redo my whole life. Because why? Because I just didn't want to deal with the pain, so that if I could become someone else, if I could be living someone else's life, then I wouldn't have to deal with Brandoline's life. Um, and so that was my initial like shocker response. And I remember one of my friends saying, so he's still going to be dead if you move to the Bahamas. He's still going to be dead if, all of these things in your life are different. So eventually you kind of have to cope. And so my experience, and you guys looking from the outside, all y'all that has been following me are like, oh my God, you're so powerful. You're so amazing. You're just doing so good. Here we are a little more than a year later. I'm going on dates and stuff. And so people are just like, wow, you're doing so good with your grief, but they don't necessarily see anything unless I'm sharing it. And so I shared with one of my followers today about some of the things that I have noticed that have transpired since I came back to work. Okay. So here we go with the distraction part too. Like I traveled a lot with my husband before he passed away. So I just continued to travel. Not that that was supposedly a distraction, but it was. Then come back full circle and it's like, okay, I'm ready to start diving back into my work. I'm ready to start sharing content with you guys, having some amazing guests on the podcast. And then like the slowdown of the travel, and all of a sudden here we are in a brand new season, right? It's been a year, but this brand new season comes with it this other weird grief. Another interesting thing is I've been going to my condo pool a lot. That's why you guys see I'm so damn tan all the time when I'm doing all this. But that is sort of another distraction. It's like, okay, what should I be doing? Oh, wait, I enjoy that. Therefore, I'm going to like avoid maybe making a YouTube video, or avoid sitting down with my stack of bills, or avoid like even like really cleaning my house. These are some things that I have become aware of. And that's why it's so important for all of us to have a personal awareness. Like, how many of you guys actually ask yourself questions like, what is my behavior? Wow, I've noticed something different. What is going on, and why? And then it came for me today, especially after I talked with one of my followers, that because that means that you really have to sit here and be present, because you're avoiding going backwards to that pain, going backwards to that routine that you used to have, and that person's still not there. So just like avoiding, I don't want to say responsibility because responsibility is a trigger word for me, but avoiding the things that you normally would take care of, so that you're not having to be in that present moment, and that you could go to whatever distraction. And I even wrote here, because I like to write little bullet points to make sure that I'm covering stuff to share with y'all, is that it's like an addiction, right? It starts building and building. And then when you see the things that you normally would attend to, then this feeling bubbles up in your stomach, like, oh, no, I don't want to deal with that. So let's just like go to the pool, or let's go to lunch with my friends, or let's plan another trip to Utah, right? But then that once you have that personal awareness, you're like, okay, there's a little bit of an addiction going on here. And this happens with a lot of people with grief. They start like buying more things, hoarding more things, or hoarding the things that belonged to their loved one. We all have to be aware and be okay with ourselves. Be okay with your weren't cleaning your damn house. Be okay with your avoidance, and be soft with yourself, or else what? You're just gonna like be fighting with yourself. Be okay with it, but come to that awareness, and then guess what? You get to sit in that uncomfortableness, because if you don't, it's just going to keep building and building. And other components of your life are going to start not being in alignment. And then it just gets clunky, and it's like, it just gets worse. It's like this downhill spiral. So when we get to sit in that uncomfortableness, right? So, okay, let's sweep them up the whole house. Let's sit down with these papers. Let's, pay the bills or whatever it is, the avoidance thing, right? Asking yourself, what does this really mean to me? What does it mean? Like for me, it's like, oh my God, fear of making that decision. There's no one else here to like bounce off the wall with me anymore. So I lost my mom and my husband. So really realizing for me, it's like being able to make a decision and be okay with it. Universe is going to support you, but that you didn't need that other person. But the fear of making that decision because the other person's not there, then you go back into that distraction mode. Okay, instead of making that decision, I'm gonna go to the pool. It's uncomfortable, but sitting in that uncomfortableness so that you could come to the conclusion of, oh, that's why the distraction. And then you could work with spirit yourself or a coach or whatever and realize, okay, it's time to make a fucking decision. Universe is going to support me no matter what. Even if you fall flat on your face, universe is right there to scoop your ass back up. But also another one of the fears is like feeling that pain again. Pain sucks, but at the same time, your darkest moment is always your light. Look how much you've grown since your loss. Look how much you've changed since your loss. Look how much you've like tried to love yourself since your loss. That pain's always going to be there. So being okay with it and not like necessarily avoiding it, not sitting in it all day either, like you did when they first passed away, or maybe you still are, right? Allowing yourself to sit there, analyze it, work with spirit, maybe get some energy flowing through there, give yourself some Reiki, sit with that feeling, acknowledge it, maybe dissolve it, maybe work with, Archangel Gabriel or Raphael rather, and Michael to clear that out and set that intention that, okay, I felt it. And so then also I love to talk about reverse engineering. So physically taking care of those things, making sure you say, okay, sweeping, mopping the floor, purging things, those types of things. So having that awareness and doing what you need to do. And then while you're doing all that, because here's the other big thing I want to share with you guys, is how you do one thing is how you do all things. So thinking about like a little bit of clutter around in my house means that what? There's clutter in my mind. There's clutter in my energy system. There's thoughts that I'm just stacking over here and not dealing with. So how you do one thing is how you do all things. So if you're doing this in one aspect of your life, you're doing it in all aspects of your life. So if you can start reverse engineering by taking care of some of the things that you've been avoiding, then you're working through that energy. Then you're letting the thoughts that don't serve you in your brain come to surface and heal it, reverse engineer it. Forward engineering it would definitely be meditation, working with spirit, that personal awareness. But the reverse engineering is like, okay, this is all the shit that I actually physically need to do in this third dimension, and I'm going to do it today. And then you feel better for it, right? Then you feel better. You physically feel better. So these are just a couple things I wanted to share with you guys based on my most recent experience with the next phase of grief. Grief is a scary monster. Grief is an interesting monster, rather. So for those of you guys that are, having this experience, I hope this short little podcast help you a little bit to just be more aware of, even though it's years later, that you may still be having the trauma come up and show up in different ways in your life versus peeling yourself off the floor crying, right? It could show up, like I said, in the clutter and all that. So I'm sending you guys all love on your journey, and I will talk to you soon.